Welcome to the London Commercial Offices podcast with me, your host, Steve Berridge, Managing Director at Fidgins Cost Management. This is a podcast where we share the stories, career paths, lessons and insights from some of the industry's most influential people. Anything contained within our podcast should not be considered professional advice, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe or follow buttons to ensure you don't miss any of the amazing guests we've got coming up. It also really helps us grow the show. Thanks. Today we're joined by Bex Morehouse, Head of Strategy, Operational Excellence and Performance at WPP. WPP are a global creative agency with more than 100,000 people in over 100 countries. We'll take a walk through her impressive career path from early days in the service office space through to being part of Nike's UK leadership team. We'll also hopefully talk about why she set up on her own back in 2021 and what ultimately pulled her back into the corporate world to help WPP. So without further ado, Bex, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you so much, by the way, for having me as well.
No, pleasure. So you'll know from previous episodes, we like to start right back at the beginning. How far back are we going today?
Oh, I love these questions. I've got to say, we've got to go back to where I was born because it shaped a lot of who I am, to be honest with you. So many people don't know, but I'm actually Welsh. So I was born in a very small little town called Knighton. So I've got to give kudos to Knighton.
A shout out.
Shout out to Knighton. But it was a very small town and I loved it. A real sense of community and, you know, helping each other and all of the lovely things that go with it. But it didn't have really any diversity whatsoever. Everybody kind of looked, sounded the same. And a lot of people didn't really leave the town. It set me on this path of like, there's got to be more to this. Like, what else is out there? And my mum and dad did a great job of like sending us off to different places like Birmingham, like big cities, Sheffield, wherever. Like we went off on day trips and
go and see how the world is.
Exactly, yeah, all of that. But then when I did, it was like, I know that I can't stay here, and that was quite hard to acknowledge that actually, if I wanted to have, you know, a successful career and everything like that, then I had to move really. So that kind of informed like why I love people, really, why I love being part of a community and that sense of belonging. From there, I knew I had to get a qualification, didn't know what to do, ended up randomly doing geography. Don't ask me why.
So you, in terms of just taking one step back, in terms of schooling and coming through school, were you academic? Were you sporty? Were you shy? Were you social? I'm just trying to get a kind of a flavour of as a person. Have you changed as you've got older, or are you very similar to where you were?
Oh gosh, I'm totally different probably to where I was then. Like I was honestly scared of my own shadow back then a little bit. Like I lacked a lot of confidence and shied away really from doing anything that might put me at risk of failure. So I sort of, I remember my mum getting me a job down at a local paper shop and I had this panic. I was like, I can't do it. I'm going to give them the wrong change. And I wouldn't go for my first day. I just didn't turn up. My mum was so upset. She was like, I can't believe that you've just embarrassed me. You know, it was just this anxiety of like, I'm going to make a mistake and I don't want to make a mistake. You know what I mean? So I'm just going to do everything that I need to do and get by. And
under the radar.
Under the radar, yeah. And I had lots of friends at school, very social, but ultimately always lacking self-confidence, unfortunately. And that does still exist today, but I probably am better at hiding it than...
I'd say you're a lot better at hiding
it. So that kind of thing of, you know, loving being around people and energy and fun and all of that stuff was still in me then. But yeah, definitely this unfortunate lack of self-confidence that I've had to battle throughout my career, basically.
Okay, so in terms of academic-wise, GCSEs and A-levels, so did you enjoy geography as part of those, or was it kind of, that's the one I'm best at, we might as well go down that road?
Do you know what? I suffered really early on, actually, with not having this confidence and therefore not thinking that I could achieve, and actually I did achieve. So back then I did biology, geography and arts and crafts as my A-levels, and I think I got like BBC or something. So I did pretty good in my A-levels, but I always lacked that thought that I could do more. So actually what happened was I submitted for a degree that I felt was comfortable and was achievable to get to. But actually if I would have known like how my biology degree would have turned out, I might have ended up going more into science, to be honest with you. But I just didn't have the confidence.
So you just thought you had more confidence, or you had a likelier success rate with geography than you did with biology?
Yes, that's it. And geography was, I did physical geography. So that was very scientific in terms of, you know, assessing variables, doing experiments and stuff like that, which I really, really enjoyed. So I thought, actually, it's the middle ground between...
Covering both bases a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
What university did you pick? Was it one of the places that your mum had sent you to when you were growing up to explore the world?
No, not at all.
No, okay.
I ended up in the most random place, to be honest with you. And this is like, no, I'm not being negative to Hull, but that's where I landed in Hull. And the reason for that was it was really well renowned, red brick university, and great for geography. So it had a really amazing department. And so I just went there, and actually I went to look at different places. And again, being from a really small town, very different to my sister, by the way, because she was like straight into Sheffield, and she didn't, she had no qualms whatsoever. But I was like, I think I need to be on a campus university where I'm not in the hubbub of the city and it's not too overwhelming. It just feels, it's big,
more
but it
manageable.
feels manageable. Yeah, exactly. So Hull was great for that. And, like I say, the university from a geography standpoint was well renowned. So it kind of
that's quite interesting, because if you were, I can imagine, and I'm second guessing, if you were shy, if you did lack confidence, I could have imagined, and you picked geography because you thought that was the likelihood that you were going to do best in.
Yeah.
But actually, you would have targeted more mediocre universities, thinking that would have been perhaps an easier path, but you didn't. You went for one of the premier ones for that particular subject matter.
Yeah, because I knew that I could, obviously get in, you get your predicted grades and
Your
everything
scores.
like that. They basically said, yeah, I think that's going to be fine. I think you'll be able to achieve that. And this is a really good place for you to do it because it was the physical geography. So it's around like soils, rivers, all that kind of stuff.
Longshore Drift and Oxbow Lakes.
Exactly. All of that jazz, which is funny because it's so far removed from me now. But obviously back then it was something that I was super interested in. So
how did you find university life in terms of sort of, I assume you were still shy by the time you left home, if that makes sense, because you hadn't had that opportunity to grow.
So I had this weird balance of like being socially outgoing, but like really, like I say, it's self-esteem, lacking confidence. So making friends and kind of adapting was fine, but it was just totally out of my comfort zone. Like classic example, when I say this now, I mean, people probably think, God, what on earth was wrong with her? But bear in mind, in my town at the time, we didn't have buses or anything like that. There were buses running, but they didn't go anywhere that you needed to go, and they weren't at the times that you need to get on them. So I didn't travel on buses or anything like that. And I remember day one at university, the bus picked us up from the halls of residence, took us to, it's like a normal bus, but it pulled in, took us to the university, and then on the way home I was stood on the same side of the road waiting for the bus. I couldn't understand why none of the buses were going back to Cottingham, which is where the campus base was. And then I had to just ask someone, but it took a long while for me to think, oh geez, I'm going to just have to ask someone. And they were like, oh no, you've got to cross over because
they go one way, then come back the other.
Oh my God.
But do you know what? You wouldn't, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know.
No, but I mean, it just shows the naivety really of me at that time in terms of, and I remember going to the library is the other classic example. The library was like nothing I've ever seen before. Like it was huge and it had views of the Humber Bridge and like it's phenomenal. If anyone goes to Hull University, you need to go in that library. But it was just rows and rows of books, like so many books that I've never seen anything like that before. Like, and I remember just standing in there going, wow, like, going to the computer system and having to suss out like what level is that on and where's that run of books and all of that stuff that goes with it. It just was at a scale that I just wasn't used to be totally honest with you.
I don't think that's unique. I think a lot of people would have had, I've been to a library before I went to uni, but back to your point, it was a room, not a library.
Yeah, exactly. There was a really, really good photocopying place in Hull. All the students knew of it. So you take the book out of the library and they just photocopy the whole thing for you.
Perfect.
So it was like, well, that book was 50 quid and I've just paid 5. So I'm quite happy about that in my student days. Not that it helped the author or anyone else in the process.
If you've only got 20 quid a week to live on.
This is it. Needs must.
Needs must. So how did you find then sort of the overall, was it a 3-year course?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 3 years.
And how did you get on?
Do you know what? I loved it actually. It was really like stepping out of the town that I was from. My family was really well sort of like known and respected in my little town. And, I was always someone's daughter or someone's sister. So suddenly starting to be just me with no other like, I'm not related. Like I always still am obviously related to people.
Almost a fresh start.
Exactly.
A blank piece of paper.
Yeah, fresh start. And I really loved it. And I learned that, all of the stuff, that being uncomfortable was actually a massive driver for self-growth. And I think that I just got really used to every day being uncomfortable, especially in the first year where so much I didn't know. Like it's just unbelievable really when I think back. But there's so much I just didn't know or understand. And, my mum was such a great mum. She did all the washing for us. So it was like learning to use a washing machine, like all those random things that I had to do. It was like, yeah, it was really informative. And also I met my partner there. So, Tone, me and him have been together 26 years this year, 27 years, not married, but together. And I met him there as well. So I've got a lot to thank Hull University for, see?
Fantastic. So did you, a 2-1, a 2-2,
Yeah.
a first?
2-1. Yeah.
2-1.
So again, that same theme of like, I had a high 2-1 and again, just not knowing my abilities, I think, at that age, because everything that I put my mind to, I worked super hard because I lacked that self-esteem and confidence with it. And it always meant that I would get usually good grades. And then it would be like, well, why did I put that much pressure on myself? And it's that kind of cycle that you end up finding yourself in sometimes.
I'm looking forward to seeing, as we talk through your career, whether that lack of self-confidence has kind of eroded as you have gained experience, or whether that's still there as an underlying part of your kind of psyche. So in terms of then into the sort of the last year of uni, finishing up, did you have a plan? Did you have an idea of where you were going? Because up until that point, unless I'm wrong, you didn't really have any insight into real estate as such. It's not something you've been part of. It's not an ecosystem you've been involved with. So where could we talk about kind of what happened and when, and kind of how you, was it by chance that you ended up in kind of where you are now?
Yeah, so this was like, again, thanks to Tony, really, that Tone's from Kent originally. So
Whereabouts?
He's from the Isle of Sheppey, but don't
My
hold
sister
that
lives on the Isle of
against him.
Sheppey.
Oh, there we go.
There you
See,
go.
this is
And
good.
we're from sort of Medway towns originally, all that part of the world.
Yeah, so he literally was from there. And when we were at university, he was the year ahead of me actually at uni. So he'd left before me, came back. That's another story that I won't bore you with. But we then set about what are we going to do together and where are we going to live and how are we going to sort of like take this next step together. So he had friends already that were living in London. And so we just thought, well, do you know what? We'll just move into the room that's available in the house and we'll just make it work. And I remember my dad just being really like a little bit furious, like saying that why would I pick myself up, move to London without a job, without anything, and commit to rent that I couldn't pay and all of the stuff that comes with it.
Do you think they wanted you to come back? Was there a part of that, or?
I don't know. I don't. Do you know what? I don't think it was that. I think it was more that my mum and dad are like really live by the rules. Do you know what I
Risk
mean?
adverse.
Risk averse, yeah. And I think it was just my dad fearing that I would go to London, not be able to afford rent, get into debt. Like I didn't have in his head, I didn't have a plan. So I think that was for him quite hard to kind of adjust to. Whereas my mum was like, go for it. Like, you know what I mean? Just do it, see what's going to happen. If it doesn't work, you come back. So they've got very sort of different dynamics there. So I just went for it and then just ended up doing temp jobs to start off with. And I actually worked in the Criminal Injuries Board. It was my first major temp job, which was just a baptism of fire. Lots of fun, actually. I don't know if you know about the Criminal Injuries Board. It's not.
I don't.
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I was basically feeding caseworkers files. So it's if something's happened in the UK and you've like been a victim of a injury, so to speak, criminal injury, you're entitled to compensation. And so it was all of that. So picking up the phone, dealing with people who, excuse me, who'd been like a victim of something horrendous, really, and having to walk them through where their case was, who it had been assigned to, where they were in the system and everything like that. So it was like that caring, you needed to have that caring mentality.
Also having to talk to strangers.
Yeah, exactly.
On the phone, which is a skill set that I think a lot of people don't have anymore.
Yeah.
But it's, it's putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually really love that one because, there was people who'd had files sat there for like months, sometimes years, and they hadn't been filed correctly or there was some challenge within it. And I could solve that for them, help them and move them on to the next one. So it was always like usually a nice conversation because people would say, oh, you've been really helpful. Like, can I chat to your who's your manager or whatever? And it was that really nice thing of like going to work, working hard, but helping people in the process. So, yeah.
So in terms of then temp jobbing, was that a long gig or was it multiple jobs within a short period of time?
Do you know what?
I'm trying to work out the kind of the river that led you into real
Yeah.
estate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know how long I was there for. I can't remember. I feel like it was quite a long contract. I feel like it was, but then I was younger. So then time goes slower almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think I was there about a year or something like that, quite a long contract. And from there, now you'll get me, I'm thinking way back now. I can't remember if I went straight from there. I think I might have gone straight from there to the Economist. I worked in an Economist for a little while. So I was on the reception desk there, supporting them in terms of visa applications, reception, all of that kind of stuff. And again, really liked helping people. And they were going to the developing world and running things like watering that they'd never had in certain countries like Timbuktu and certain places like Timbuktu and stuff. And again, wow, like to get that exposure to the world was just incredible at that Economist. And then from there, I ended up going into serviced offices, and I had the most random job title, which I'll tell you about. It was West End Floater. That was my job title. And basically what I was I was on the bank in terms of I was a permanent member of the team, but I didn't have a fixed destination. So every day I would get a call saying, oh, you need to be at Brook Street office for a week to cover X job. So one day I'd be covering, I don't know, telecoms. The next day I'd be covering reception. The next day I'd be covering switchboard, because back then you had proper switchboard.
So this was a serviced operator that had multiple locations in London.
Yeah.
You were essentially just a resource jumping between each of those locations to do whatever they needed doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Floater.
Floater. Yeah. It was just, and again, that job was just like, I loved it so much, like helping people again and supporting people, and all the different types of customers that used to come in was just unbelievable. Like there was just so many, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing, so I liked that freedom of like the freedom that gave me. Like I didn't know where I was going to be. It was always in the West End somewhere, but sometimes I'd be en route to a clear office and they'd say, oh no, we don't need you there today, you need to go to somewhere else. And in that job, I basically, one of the ladies there, who is Helen Adams, who I need to give like a massive kudos to, Helen Adams basically said, like, I think you're really capable of doing more. I don't know why you're in this West End float role, really. She said, what we're going to do is we're going to give you contracts to start to do. So, if somebody wants to come and rent office space from us, I want you to build out the contracts and do all of those bits. So that was brilliant, because I'd gone from plugging in a switchboard saying like, hold the line caller, blah, 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 all of that, to suddenly being given like a meaty job to sort of do, if you know what I mean. And from there, I just ended up like in the system. And I can't remember, if I'm honest, what different roles I did, but it went all the way up to becoming centre manager, opening a centre from scratch, and managing event base, all of the hard and soft services in terms of FM, and then all the way through to AGM. And I obviously moved companies within that serviced office space. So started at EOG, which is now Argyle, went to MWB, and then went to Regis. So yeah, and that was kind of my career. And during that period, I just took on, as I suppose happens when they know that you're a safe pair of hands, I just took on then multiple buildings, more
we
contracts.
know who can do that.
Yeah.
We know who can do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and did kind of like through at EOG as well. At the very start, I did a standards role as well, which I loved, which was all around like, what experience are we trying to give people when they come into the building, and what does that look like, and how does, like, even to the point there, because it was a very process orientated business, but even to the point we had lookbooks around what the meeting room should look like, what uniform people should be wearing, and all the bits that go with it. So
just sort of standard consistency across locations.
Exactly, yeah. And then the salespeople obviously could then sell an experience, which, now it's very much in real estate. Everybody talks about space as a service and all of that. But, 25 years ago, we were kind of already doing that in serviced offices. You didn't just buy the fabric of the building, you bought everything that went with it. And for the sales team, it was all about, what are your clients asking for, and how can we make sure that our service hits all of those kind of key frustration
and expectations to keep them there, to keep them sticky.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking kind of timeline wise, I think up to about 2013, sort of AGM at Regis.
Yeah.
If that feels about right.
Yeah.
A huge departure from where you were pre-university in terms of geography and geography, but more as a person. So, shy, lacking in confidence, to moving cities, to starting as a floater, to becoming quite senior and managing multiple locations.
Yeah.
Do you think that during that pathway and that those interactions that you became less shy, or is it still there and you manage it? How do you feel about that?
Do you know what it's so the whole, like, obviously being brought up like I was, I always could go and chat to anyone. So it wasn't an issue where I was so shy that I couldn't speak or anything like that, or stuttering or anything like that. It was just more this lack of confidence, I think, that was underpinning everything. So I think that my confidence started to build because I had evidence to support. Like, you did that, it was scary, but you survived it. You did that, that was really scary, but you survived it. So
Stacking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, just stacking on evidence to support, like, you can do this. But still to the point where I wasn't really a fan of confrontation. So there was moments still, even in any of those jobs where, if you're now suddenly responsible for a sales target and someone's stealing your leads per se, like, how are you going to deal with that? Because obviously if you don't have confidence, how are you going to deal with the conflict and all the stuff that goes with it? So again, it was just learning, like every single time being open to learning, and more than anything, and I know I keep saying it, but being uncomfortable. Like, there was a huge period where I can't remember the date now, like the particular year, but there was a moment in time where I had so much anxiety. I remember struggling to go to work because I had this fear that I'm going very deep here, but I had this fear that I needed the toilet. That was how my anxiety was showing up. And I couldn't get on the tube to go to work. I never told a soul. I just got on the tube, and whatever mechanism that meant to get to work, I had to get to work. So I was doing Sudokus at the time on the train, because you couldn't have...
To distract yourself.
Yeah, to distract myself. Or I was getting up super early with Tone to go to work. So he was working in a finance job at that time, getting into work at 6 a.m. because he had to be on the train at 5. And if I was going to if I could talk to him, it would be an anxiety over, you know what I mean? It would be easier. So I'd get into work at 6. People would be like, "Oh, you're in so early. Why did you get in oh, I love it. Love being in before everybody comes in."
Well, there's a benefit of it, looking like you had an amazing work ethic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But obviously all of those things were kind of like hidden, and I just delivered against everything that was expected of me and pushed through all of those moments where I just thought, oh my goodness, this is like overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? Or this is, I feel so uncomfortable here. Like, getting, as an example, one of my biggest fears unlocked was networking. Oh my goodness. Like, hated it. Like, how do I go and set to talk nonsense to people for like,
I think most people have that, and to the point, I think as well, that if you have an individual that doesn't even have a slight hesitation about networking, then actually they're the people that people don't want to network with.
Yeah.
Once you realise, because I've had this throughout my career, and I like talking to people, I'm fine with it, but I still hate walking into an event, putting a badge on, and you've got that 30 seconds, 5 minutes where you haven't recognised a face. And you're just praying that you see a face that so you can make eye contact, so you can go over, and then you've got someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And then the trick is to ensure that you don't stand next to that person for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so easy to feel comfortable with that one person and just stay there. And then you realise you haven't really capitalised.
And also that person happens to work for the same company that you work for, and you haven't done any networking.
No,
but I
exactly.
think everyone feels the same way. And I think once you realise that everybody's also wanting to network, that's why they're there. Otherwise they wouldn't be there. But, you can kind of just try and just get into it, just ask some questions. And, I'm a great believer in, I don't need to say anything about myself. All I need to do is ask you questions about you, because people love to talk about themselves.
Yeah, that's
and that,
true.
For me, is networking. And then when that person leaves, they'll kind of go, God, Steve was a nice guy, really, really good listener. And that's a form of networking.
So true.
But,
these are some top tips there, because I think, like you say, so many people struggle with networking. So it's great advice. And
everyone, I think everyone hates networking. But they wouldn't be there if they didn't want to network. Unless maybe they're told by their boss they need to. So we're kind of at the end of the period at Regis.
Yeah.
You might not be able to remember, but what was going through your mind at that point in time? Were you missing something? Did you, were you poached? How did you essentially jump out from that to, I'm going to call it client side, but it isn't really client side, but into an organization?
Yeah. So basically back then, so it was a really awkward time at Regis because they were doing restructuring. So I was like an area general manager, and they were going through a process of like restructuring. And with that came uncertainty around, what does that mean in terms of career? What does that mean for me specifically? And how's that going to play out. And at the time, my other half, Tone, wasn't working either. So it put double pressure because it was like my money coming into the house, basically. So I loved my time at Regis. I absolutely loved every moment of it. I can't even begin to tell you, because it's a very sort of like structured business actually behind it. And I like structure and I like freedom to operate within structure, but I don't want to necessarily always think of the structure, if that makes sense. So it was a really lovely place for me to be. But I had this thing happening in the background, which was like, well, they could turn around to me tomorrow and say, we haven't got a job for you. Yeah. And that was a worry because of my situation. So actually, weirdly at the same time, so back in, I think, MWB days, one of my clients back then was Converse when I was in MWB.
As in the shoe brand?
The shoe brand Converse, yeah.
I'm told by my wife I'm not allowed to wear those. I'm not trendy.
Really?
I'm not trendy enough to pull off Converse.
That's so funny. But yeah, so basically back then Converse were one of my clients, and we set up their first UK office in my building. And there was a guy who was like their technology person, James Bond, not the James Bond, but James Bond. And I remember him coming around, and I was a stickler because I managed the server rooms and stuff as well. And I'm going to just say they were good. Like, my server rooms were good. Anyway, he was like a tech guy, and he came in and was like, your server rooms are like unbelievable. And I was like, oh, I run a tight ship. I'm a bit like anal about my about the server rooms and everything like that. And I said, I always think that if you've got a messy server room, like, what else is messy? Because that's really important to the infrastructure of the building. So you need to, take care of that. Anyway, we just chatted, supported him with setting up the office and everything like that. And then we just kept in touch during that period of them being in the office with me. When they left, we never really spoke to each other again. Anyway, fast forward to when this situation was happening at Regis, he messaged me and said, I've got this office manager job happening at Nike, because Nike owned Converse as well. And would you want to come and just have a look, like, see what you think? And at the time, it was so difficult because it was a step down, really, to be honest with you, from what I was doing. The salary wasn't where the original job was, but there was just something about that place. I can't even tell you what it was. It was just a feeling. He said, and obviously you must realise, he's like, just come to the office, just have a walk around with me, see what you think. When I went there, I was like, this is like nothing I felt before. It just
energized.
Had this energy. Yeah. Just amazing energy. And I just thought, if you don't like it, and you're it's not for you, just find another job, like, just take a punt kind of thing, which is what I did. And weirdly, I asked him years later why he came back to, like, why did he think of me? And he said, which is so funny, and it shows you about any interaction you have with people, because he worked at Nike, everyone used to say to him, oh, can I get a free pair of shoes? Or could I have free whatever, this, that stuff? And he said, I was one of the first people that he'd met that had never asked that. I never ever said to him, like, what can you give me? It was more around, what can I do for you? And that's what stuck in his mind. So I've always kind of taken that forward with me in my career to think, it's not about what someone can do for you. It's about what you can do for them. Keep paying it forward. Yeah.
That's interesting. And it took a long time to get that back, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it can happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a London office manager role.
Yeah.
So sort of day to day, what was that kind of, how was that first year, if that makes sense?
Oh, it was so funny. Like, obviously I didn't say it at the time to the guys that were there, but it was just like, it was just chaos. Like, as in, it was very hands-on for me, which I hadn't been doing. My previous role was more kind of strategic and everything like that. So it was back to being hands-on. And I remember, like, my first day, deliverers coming in. I had a team doing deliveries, and I just joined the line, picking the boxes, because everyone just used to join the line. And I just joined the line and threw the boxes over or whatever. And I remember people going, like, looking at me a bit strange, because the previous person hadn't really done that. They'd kind of tried to be a manager and not really get in the nitty gritty. Whereas I've always believed, like, if you're going to ask someone to do something, you need to be prepared to do it yourself, So
even if only to understand how it needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think that it's like, you're a team, and the team means rolling your sleeves up and helping and supporting and everything like that. So yeah, so there. And remember setting up one-to-ones with the team. This was the funniest thing, that they'd never had one-to-ones. So I remember sitting with one of the girls.
I think they're going to get fired or something.
Yeah. She sat literally like this. That was her body language. And she's like, what's all this about? Like that. And I was like, I just want to get to know you, find out more about, like, who you are as a person, like what lights a fire in you, outside of work, in work, all of that. And over the like face-to-face meeting, it was like
slowly
yeah.
removing the guard.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We just built such a great team there, and that was half of the joy of working at Nike, is the people that you get to interact with, and the amazing experiences and things that you do whilst working there. But it definitely wasn't an easy road. It was a hard transition. Why do we need to log deliveries? As an example, it's quite essential that we know where packages are.
And at that point in time, did you know that you were going to be there for a decent stint? You could feel it. It was.
Do you know what? I don't even know. I think I just went into it going, oh, this is hard. Like, it was a hard graft. We didn't have a massive team either. So like I said, I was like on the ground doing a lot of the kind of manual work and stuff like that goes with it. Like even silly little things like setting up, you'd have a massive all hands. We didn't have porters to move the chairs. It was like the facilities team that were doing that. So I'm not going to just shove my team in there and not help. So I was putting out chairs. I was like, do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I'll be honest, I was a bit like, oh God, I've just got to get them to a place where somebody of any quality would want to come in and help, and that was my driving factor, is like, I've been given this baton, it's not in a good place, how can I make it better? And that's just what I ended up doing. But it was intoxicating, to be honest with you. I just loved making things better there, and with every kind of thing that I improved, then more responsibility came my way, and I kind of just was thriving in that. The fact that I had free autonomy to make decisions, didn't need to report to anyone really about what I was doing, just show what I was doing. And
again, so you had structure, but you didn't feel structured.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And because obviously I was the only sort of real estate and workplace services person like in that region, I was the person that everybody came to for the answers. I was negotiating contracts in terms of real estate and all the other bits that go with it because of my prior experience. So the role just grew and grew. And to be honest, I suppose I built the role really, because it wasn't like that was probably in my job description. And that's something, for anyone that's listening, starting out in their career, that's something I would advocate for all the time. Like, see things you want to do and pick them up, and you'll be surprised how you can make your role more your own, rather than what it says on the job description. Yeah.
Top tip. Office manager to kind of FM manager kind of role. And it looks like after that, which is 2.5 years, that sort of time frame, you kind of started to push more into workplace.
Yeah.
Was that, as you've just said, was that more you just started picking up more tasks within that kind of area and you enjoyed it more than sort of FM roles? And because it looks like that's kind of that looks like the start of your kind of workplace kind of passion.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting though, isn't it? Because back in the serviced office days, it was workplace really that I was responsible for. It wasn't just the FM, it was the whole thing, sales and the whole bit. So I think probably all of my career I've done workplace. But obviously, because we were in any of the serviced offices that I was in, we were always self-delivering. We didn't have any contracts. Actually, till later on in my career, at one place we did have outsourced FM, but most places we were self-delivering. So I needed to know about HVAC systems, infrastructure, all the stuff that goes on in the building. But I'll be honest, my passion for that was, I'd kind of been there and done it to a certain degree. So I was like, what's next? Because I'm not going to be a maintenance engineer. I'm not going to do any of those kind of tasks. So how can I transition out of that a little bit? I think that was a conscious thing. And also, let's be honest, being a woman back then in FM was really hard. Like, you had to be super knowledgeable about your subject to be given a platform and to actually be respected. Sure. And I find that, like, I never really spoke about that at that time, but I think I felt like I had to know more than what a man would have known in the same role to get that credibility. So I did a lot of research, training and all that on the side to make sure that I knew what I needed to know, I suppose. I hope I've answered the question there, because I think I've segued.
No, absolutely. So could you talk to me about kind of then the new workplace kind of role then that you've kind of fulfilled and took on within Nike? So that was kind of 2016, and I think you were there for
nearly
years?
8 years.
Nearly 8 years. So what did that period of time look like? Because I'm just transparently looking at your illustrious career history on LinkedIn.
Oh,
and you can see that there's kind of some very quick progression, or what looks like progression from a job title perspective anyway. From role to role, a couple of years in each role, and constantly climbing.
Yeah.
So can we talk about that in the wider sense?
Yeah. Interesting enough, you'll see if you're like looking on LinkedIn at my career, that's happened everywhere I've been. And interestingly enough, I've never pushed for any of it, actually. I've always just been tapped on the shoulder, like, you should be doing more, you could be capable
Or
of
you're already
more.
doing some of this.
Yeah, so why
off
don't
your
we
own
just
back.
make it official? Yeah, exactly. And then the workplace design and connectivity role at Nike, I just loved, because it was like design as well, in the sense of, what is the physical office going to look like? And Nike's office at the time when I first joined, it had been done by the marketing team in terms of the design. So it was a beautiful place, don't get me wrong, in the sense of the marketing and everything like that. But to physically work in it, it was
functionally.
It's quite hard and actually draining, because the vinyls and everything that were there were just so intense. Like, to sit at your desk and work with like, a conflicting image here and then an image here, and then it was quite disconnected. It didn't have a flow like through the place. So doing the northern office, updating them, building out gyms, all of those bits that go with it were just incredible. And actually, that's when Nike as a business noticed the worth that WD&C brought to the business, was when we had budget to do big projects and stuff like that, like showroom renovations, and stuff like that. So those were the bits that I love, the transformation element of taking, it was the location was Film House. It was a very old building in Soho, brilliant, but the building wasn't really fit for purpose for us, and it was trying to do the best we could with the building that we had. And then obviously my last part of that role was creating their new head office in King's Cross. And at that point, that's where I left the business, once the legacy had been left for them. And to see them now, like, smashing it in that place, it's just incredible, because one of the big passion bits that I did at the new office was set up their gym for them. And I see, like, we call it consumers, like when I was at Nike, but they're really just customers, I suppose. But seeing customers in their training in a space that was never part of the original brief that they gave me is just like,
so that's a Nike gym, but it's there for the public to use.
Well, what it is it's a space within their head office where they all of their employees, or they call them athletes, they can all use. But actually the idea was, because we built it off the street, that if we wanted to do brand activations or community activations, they get invited. So like, as an athlete who is just buying product from them, like, how incredible to get a taste of like the gym, which is built out with all the swoosh branding on all the weights and everything like that. Like, it's pretty special. But yeah, stuff like that still fills me with like huge joy that I could deliver that for them, and it's still there beyond me being there, if that makes sense.
No, it does, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're now kind of 2021, sort of summer 2021.
Yeah.
And it's, if I'm correct in thinking, this is the point of time your next focus was a big change.
Yeah, massive.
And there's lots of people listening that could probably relate to this. And we were talking off air about something that we're looking at doing related to this. Can we talk about your mindset in that last year at Nike? Because up until that point in time, you've always been part of businesses, helping established businesses grow within, as you said, structure, but you weren't structured.
Yeah.
There was always jobs to be done. You could do that. There was an outcome. You had a salary.
Yeah.
I suppose the question is, what was missing for you?
So I think, I was saying how obviously all the way through my career, I'd kind of shown what I was capable of, gone a bit off the job description and kind of built roles for myself, I suppose, in a little way. And at Nike, I really felt that there was a role more related to well-being. So that was my driver. I thought, if I can just keep showing up, creating these incredible environments and experiences related to well-being, somebody's going to hopefully see at some point that this is a role in itself. Like, it could be a role in itself.
So you were trying to create and get a proper role created for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I really thought that, if any business is going to do it, it's got to be Nike. Do you know what I mean? So
I get that.
Yeah, so I was really trying. And then during that period in lockdown, obviously I was at home probably for the first time in a long time. I did a lot of travel with my job at Nike, and I was shipped in the night with Tone and everything like that. So there was that thing of like, I'm not really at home as much as I would like to be at home.
And you're not in the office.
And I'm not in the office.
Experiencing that Nike
vibe,
culture and environment that you loved so much.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously when COVID hit, I was responsible for health and safety. So there was this huge responsibility to take care of our people, whether that be people going to visit stores, whether it be like our own employees going into the office. And it was just relentless. I remember working 12-hour days consistently for that first, I'd say, month of COVID, because we had to shut down offices, we had to shut down stores. Like, it was just, horrendous.
Chaos.
And I remember looking at, it sounds awful now when I reflect back, but we were literally monitoring the death toll, like in the UK and Ireland, which is what I was responsible for. And I remember just seeing it just like growing exponentially. And I could predict actually from the numbers what it would be the next week. That's how, like, you could see there was a pattern in it. And I looked down at my watch one day and I'd done 200 odd steps on my watch. Now, I was someone who ran all the time, exercised all the time, run at 100 miles an hour just in my life, to suddenly 12 o'clock at night, shutting down my laptop one day and seeing I'd done 200 steps. I just thought, gosh, this has got to change. What am I doing? Like, what am I doing with my life? And actually, I rang my sister the next day and I was like, I've put on so much weight in lockdown. I feel like I'm not moving.
Lethargic.
Yeah.
Your mind's not in the right place, which I think, I imagine, and I was similar, that a lot of people felt the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like really quite hard. Honestly, nobody really rang me from work to say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, I was managing a hell of a lot and there wasn't really that support network
There wasn't
there.
that well-being role.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
So
that was your acid test that it needed to exist.
yeah, that's it. And, we set up loads of stuff. We activated loads of things virtually really quickly from a WDC perspective. We did like online yoga classes, nutrition classes, and got like community building and then breakout sessions and all manner of stuff to keep people motivated. And it was great. But I just thought, what am I doing? Like, this role isn't going to happen there. I don't know what's going on. There was loads of like changes that were happening in the business as well. And I just thought, Nike needs this and can't see it. Other people definitely won't see this then, because obviously this is like a massive business that hasn't got this in place yet, by the way, because I'm sure at some point it will happen there. But basically I thought, if there is ever a right time where I take punt and do well-being on a scale with workplace, now's it, because it's on the senior kind of leadership board agendas. Like, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, and the macro landscape in terms of what's going on in the world means that there's never been a more important time for that skill set to be part of a company culture.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And all the way through, whenever I've been managing teams, like, Tone always says to me, God, you manage so difficultly. I don't know why you put so much pressure on yourselves, but I've never managed people for outcomes. I've always managed people for the full person. Like, how's your mum and dad? Like, all that stuff that goes with it, because I think then people really want to do a good job. Do you know what I mean? It comes as a second. So it's always been there, but obviously you can only control that for your immediate team. You can't do that at a mass scale. And I wanted to do it at a mass scale. I wanted to drive change that was beyond, the 10 people that reported into me, basically. So, so I just went for it. But again, reflecting back to like where I was at sort of growing up in Wales, to think that I could be running my own business.
It's a bit of a leap.
Yeah, huge. But actually, everybody around me was like, yeah, we always knew you'd do your own thing. And I was like, how do people know? Why do people know this? And I don't know this, like, as in, So anyway, went for it. So I launched this workplace and wellbeing consultancy and did it for 4 years. And I got like amazing clients. Like, I can't even begin to say that.
So it was Invigorate Basis, wasn't it? Was the name. So talk to me about then, because setting up businesses is something I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
What was blank piece of paper? You're at Nike. You haven't yet left, but you've done it. This is what we're going to do. This is the business plan. This is the why we're doing it. Here's our mission. Here's our our revenue. Could we talk briefly about what that looked like?
Of course. So I thought, right, okay, so whilst I'm at Nike, I've got to start to think about what the future is going to be. So I did personal training qualifications. I tried to see what else was out there in terms of wellbeing qualifications that I might be able to do. So I did that on the side, so that when I kind of like made my leap, I had all of those things already in place. So I did them as sidelines. So, getting up early on the weekends and stuff to do 2 days worth of all of that, and then obviously get my qualifications. So I did all of the training in advance of that, and then I built out what my strategy was going to be. I didn't need any money in the bank because I was a consultant. All I needed was a laptop, a website, and some product ranges and services. Was how I kind of did it. And then I just used all of my skill set throughout all of my career, really, to come up with 3 pillars that I was going to operate in. So it was environments, experiences, and culture. And then I just aligned my product offering and services to those, really. And then during running the business, I'd always done change management as part of workplace transformation projects anyway. But then during running the business, I didn't want to get to a point where I was so in the business that I wasn't learning still myself. So I set aside, a bit of a percentage of the profits every year to reinvest into me to make sure that I kept being current. So I did like change management qualifications, PMO qualifications and stuff like that, just to make sure that I had the expertise that people, if you ever were pitching for a business and someone said, oh yeah, how does she know that? I could say, here's my qualification, like that's taken that off the table. So yeah, that was it. And I really didn't know what it was going to bring, but I just thought, again, back to when I first moved to London, I thought, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get a job. Like,
I think it's that doom scrolling. It's kind of someone's in a comfortable corporate, and this goes back to what we spoke about earlier. Someone's in a comfortable corporate role, earning very good money.
Yeah.
It's that if I leave and do my own thing, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. I could not pay the mortgage. I could, all of these things, and it's all negative.
Yeah.
And they're missing the one thing. It's but what positive thing could happen?
Yeah.
Because I always say, if you're in a big corporate, you can pretty much map out your last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's, yes, you'll earn great. Yes, you might enjoy the people you work with, but you know what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy now, you're not happy in 20 years. So why not take a shot, even if there's, a small outcome that changes your life?
Yeah.
The downside being you go back and get another job. And actually you learn a huge amount doing this new thing. And actually you go back into another job as a better insert profession here, as a better individual, better team player, better business manager. You're definitely more useful to that business because you have a better insight into how to run a business. So it's a no-brainer. And I'm biased, as you are, because you've done it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate people listening might not have the confidence to do it, but it's one of those things. Once you try it,
it's hard.
It's and no one's looking at you as carefully as you think they are. And everyone's going to think badly of me if it doesn't work. No one cares.
Yeah.
People have got their own shit to worry about.
Exactly.
Excuse my French. It's yes, that someone might make a sarky comment at the pub, but a week later they're busy fighting their own fires. You're not as important as you think you are.
Yeah.
In the ecosystem.
I don't know if you had the same as me though. One of the things I did struggle with a bit at the start was when I was trying to land my first clients, basically, all of my family and friends were suddenly asking me about my day job, which they'd never really done before. There was not people used to say, oh, it must be cool working at Nike. Like, yeah, it's cool. We move on, But this was it was again, really not, I don't know if it was concern or what it was, but it was very much like, how's everything going? And I felt like this need to be like, oh wow, we've done X, Y, Z, And
I see. I find that if other people, and different with family, but if people out in the market are kind of asking those questions, I actually think it's twofold. A, because they don't necessarily want you to succeed. Because I kind of feel like they're looking for you to reinforce their own internal belief that it's not worth doing. So they're kind of looking for they're looking for you to say negative things to kind of reinforce their decision not to take that leap. That isn't family. That's kind of, I think, your peer group around you. I think from a family perspective, I think it's just, especially if, as you say, where you grew up, small town, you're kind of doing something that I'm guessing they haven't done before. That's so outside of what they understand and believe that they're kind of just curious, that they're just, they want to know, well, what are you doing? How are you doing? Because I always have this with, and it's a silly example, but you and I, anybody in London working, we get to eat at some fantastic restaurants.
Yeah.
All of the time. Take me out of London into the family kind of, ecosystem. Date night is an obvious example.
Yeah.
Now my wife works for the police, so she gets blue light discount. Date night, we're going to go to Nando's. And actually, Becky, you can pay because you get discount. And it's just, we do get to operate in quite a privileged world where we get to do a lot of great stuff. And I think people that aren't part of that are just curious.
It's so true. Yeah.
And there's a lot of downsides to what we do. It's not all nice lunches.
No, 100%.
There are certain perks.
But I remember, I don't know, maybe a year in, my dad was sort of asking me again, going back to being a bit more risk averse. He was like, how are things going? And how you've got everything on your mobile phone, in terms of your bank statements and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, oh, do you know what? I just went into my bank account and just showed him the screen. And he was like, I think you'll be okay. I was like, I think I'll be okay. but you know what I mean? It's lovely. And I've got to say that speed to make decisions in your own business. Oh, God, imagine if you were in a big corporate and you could bottle that, like that same mentality, that fail forward mentality. It's unbelievable.
I would say it's like operating without the handbrake on.
Yeah.
And I always say that, back to what we talked about earlier, if you're in a big corporate and you're great at what you do technically and you're winning loads of work, do that in a setting where you control your own destiny.
Yeah.
And this ceiling is gone.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit. Earn what you want to earn. Chase the work you want to chase. Do things the way that you think they should be done rather than the way that you're told that they need to be done because you're part of, if you're part of a big beast, that you do need to do things in a certain way because otherwise you've got 2,000 people, and it's chaos.
Yeah.
But flip that into an agile, new, either one-man band or, a small business that you're growing, then you can trial and error. You can make mistakes. You can experiment. And that's where growth, innovation and improvements happen. If you just do the same thing over and over again, it's going to be a good service, but it's never going to be, the best service.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. It's funny, on the job that I'm on now, obviously I was contracting with them and just supporting them first of all, before I made the leap over. But it's really funny. Somebody said to me in the office just this week, like, God, things have changed so much since you've been here. And I was like, I'm a transformation person.
Thanks. That's what I do.
That's what I do.
So what? So
you know what I mean?
What, in terms of the services that you're offering, and so the big clients that you were doing, whilst you were at Invigorate, was it Nike? You didn't have this well-being role. I think you need it. I do it. Can I come in and do it for you?
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was as simple as that.
Yeah, and I was doing all manner of stuff. So sometimes, say for example, there was, I don't know, like maybe one of the examples might be a leadership team where everybody's just agreeing with each other and they're quite new to working together. I would come in and run workshops around removing that kind of unhealthy piece and how having debate and having discussion is what's going to take you guys forward.
Healthy conflict discussion.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I do a lot of...
which is ironic because that was one of the main things that you didn't like
true.
when you were younger.
Yeah, which is so strange, isn't it? But like I know the benefits of it, I suppose. And I think maybe that lived experience for me meant I was sat there quiet sometimes when I knew that I probably knew the answer and I probably should have just been bold enough to actually speak it rather than letting everyone go around the houses and then leave and then tell that person after or
send them an email.
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing kind of workshops, obviously public speaking, big keynotes and stuff like that around change, transformation and well-being.
So that was, a Nike staff conference. Getting up and doing that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I actually did a conference for them recently, which was lovely. It was all around their store athletes. So making just when I say store athletes, it's the people working on the shop floor, basically in the big stores. And we did a whole thing around well-being, like how they could manage their days better in terms of because if you think about it from a well-being standpoint, standing on a shop floor is not great for you. And how can they cope with making sure they're taking on water, having healthy snacks and all of that. So we came up with new, basically like a manifesto, a wellbeing manifesto that everybody would live by in the stores, which was incredible. So yeah,
it's funny. This is how you can tell that you're good at what you do, and we're very different in the sense of that would never cross my mind.
Oh, really?
In a million years, walking into a retail experience, thinking, "God, you happen to stand up all day, aren't you?" And it's just, yeah.
Things like I always know I know it's going to sound really silly now, but I always know the tone of a place from I notice the little things. So like if you go to the Shard as an example, I come out of London Bridge every day. The security guards there stand on mats and the mats are made to support you standing up all day. They stand outside on the street and they stand on these mats, which are there to obviously support your legs, to make it an easier existence, basically.
So you can see that the business behind them is thinking about their guys on the ground, guys and girls.
It means a lot because it's and the other part is winter. They have these beautiful thick coats that they can wear and little zip-up gilets underneath that are obviously look incredibly smart, but it's you're going to be cold standing out there, so we're just going to look after you. And it's those things that I'll notice when I go to places, and it's things like that I think that kind of well-being angle has to be at the center of everything. So you have to think of it from a vendor perspective, like how are your vendors treating their people as well? Because actually, if they're just delivering for you and working ridiculous hours, that's a reflection on your business as well. Do you know what I mean? Are you?
Yeah, because when I hear the word well-being, for me, I just jump straight to mental health.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's all that well-being bucket contains.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more.
Yeah. No, 100%. And you know what? One of the big parts when I used to go in and do talks around well-being, one of the big parts that always used to make people like smirk a little bit was always this like spirituality bucket, like your social consciousness and how you show up. It helps you to be fully well. If that's not there, if you're not living to your purpose and you're not doing something that you're passionate about, that's eating you like every day. And actually that chunk, it's not like you can do one and it makes up for the others. You need that whole well-being wheel to be in place for you to be fully well. But people think, I haven't had sleep on Monday, so I'm just going to sleep extra long on Tuesday to make up for it. You never recover that. Like, you have to have sleep every night. It's not something that you can, inject yourself with and suddenly get better at. So yeah,
if it was, that's something you should do. You sell that, you make
I was going to say you'd be a millionaire, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. So how did you find that sort of Invigorate Basis kind of, I say journey, but it was sort of 3 to 4 years, full time.
Yeah.
Great clients. And obviously I now understand how WPP, where you are now, fits into the overall process. So you were doing. So what were you doing for WPP? During that period?
So basically I was doing odd bits for them first of all, and then they had a mat cover contract come up. So it was back to my roots of FM, actually, like global PMO for FM. So mat cover. So when I went through the process of going and chatting with the people on the ground, one of the things that I was really kind of cognizant of was I said to them, look, if you want me to come in and keep the seat warm, I'm not the person for you. Like, I can't just fit in and do what's been done before if it's not right by what I observe. So do I have freedom to sort of make changes and to do different things? And they were like, absolutely. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to do it. And part of the reason for going down that route of doing the contract was really the reason why I decided to leave the business, to close the business down anyway, was because, and it's something that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about, but I'm okay to talk about it. But I just felt lonely, like so lonely. And I was used to working in these fast-paced environments, lots of responsibility, loads of like people to interact with. And suddenly it was me in my home office, dealing with client, challenges and fixing client challenges, but there wasn't really any chat outside of that. Like you'd have your usual, how are you, client, la 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 la, but you're not getting deep into like what people are trying to achieve. You're not supporting anyone to grow or anything like that. And I really missed having a team. And so that's why I decided to do that mat cover, and again, just see where it led. Because it was just a situation where I thought, let's give it a go and see what happens. And they were flexible around me being able to still do my other stuff and my other bits that went with it. So it felt like a good solution, basically.
Yeah. So did you manage to continue doing the consulting for other people at the same time, or?
Yeah, I did. So there was work, because obviously I'd had work stacking up, and then I used freelancers as well through my business. So the business was still ticking along in the background, doing little bits, nothing like obviously I was doing before. But yeah, I still managed to do my public speaking and all the other stuff that went with it, which they were supportive of.
Back into a big beast as such.
Yeah.
100,000 plus people. Did it feel right from day one? As in kind of back into it and going, yeah, do you know what? There's no doubts here. This is.
Yeah. It was really funny because creative organizations are always where I do best. Like I can work in any other sort of organization, I can flex myself. But if I'm working for, I don't know, a finance client or someone else, I'm very much like, I'm good at fitting in. So I would fit into that, but I didn't really feel like I had the freedom to just be me. Whereas in creative organizations, they're less fussed about what you're wearing when you go to work. Like the kind of, I suppose, those bits of it, they're more worried about what you're bringing and how you're showing up and how you talk to people and how you make people feel and all of those bits that go with it. So from day one, when I walked in there, it felt very familiar. It felt like Nike-esque in the sense of,
Sure.
Most of the employees there are sort of under 25, young creatives, and I love their focus on AI as well. They've got a huge amount of effort is going into AI, which I think is an area that's like completely untapped. That's exponential what we can see with that's going to happen. So it just felt like this is cool. This is somewhere where I could see myself. But obviously I was very conscious that it was just a mat cover, and that at the end of that period, I would be going on to do other stuff and hopefully coming back and just supporting them every now and again, maybe with a change management project or something else. I never thought that it would be long term, basically, in that mat cover period.
So what happened when the lady came back to work? Obviously, she came back. You've transformed everything while she was away.
Yeah.
Did she come back and then you kind of walked away from the business for a while, or you by that point in time you managed to kind of, I'm going to say, do other tasks with making your own role, and how did that happen?
Yeah. So again, I thought that I was just going to be going and that was it kind of thing. She came back and there was a period of like the overlap, to hand back stuff, hand stuff back over and do all of those.
I've changed this.
Yeah. Can you imagine? She was really gracious though, bless her. Like, honestly, she was very, very accommodating, which was good. But yeah, she was like, this is brilliant. Like, stuff you've managed to do stuff that I didn't get across the line or whatever before. So this is really good. So that was really like lovely, her response when I came back, when she came back, sorry. And then we had lots of changes happening within, what were they called then? Global real estate team back then. There was lots of changes happening, and actually global real estate and facilities management operated quite separately. There wasn't that conduit between. So a lady came in from another team. So she was the chief procurement officer at the time. She came in from chief procurement officer role to oversee and look at what we needed to do in order to transform. So she did a bit of a like discovery, almost like a consultant, but from inside the business, to sort of say, these are the things that we need to happen.
With a view to combining FM and real estate kind of workplace.
In a better way. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she basically, that was her plan. I was obviously due to roll off contracts. She just pulled me in the office and was like, what are you doing in January? I was like, obviously stuff that I'm working on, but let me know what you need from me. And then from January, so this year, literally this year, that's how quickly all this has happened. So in January this year, I started working for her instead. And together we've kind of started this transformation, so that we're now real estate and workplace services. And we're now one unit across real estate and workplace services. And so it's mapping out what our strategy is going to be, what that transformation is going to continue to do, and how we're going to change. She's since retired in that period as well. And so we've now got our existing chief procurement officer is now chief procurement officer with real estate and workplace services. So managing both, which interestingly enough, I'm seeing happen a lot across this space. It seems like, I think it's been happening at HSBC, Barclays, quite a few of the big banks have been doing this. So that's kind of what we've been doing. And as part of that transformation, this was Annie and myself at the time, we realised we needed to set up centres of excellence. That was going to be a huge unlock for how we started to mobilise and do things going forward. So I'm now heading up one of those centres of excellence.
And what does that mean for everybody listening?
Yeah, of course. So if you imagine, we're like obviously a global business operating in over 100 countries. And right now today, there isn't sort of a standard of how we would approach, whether it be workplace experience, workplace projects, anything like that. So what my role is to keep doing that whole strategy piece over real estate and workplace services to define what our next 3 to 5 years looks like, but also to think about operational excellence, how we want to show up, what's important to us, and also what's important in terms of talent retention and attraction. So like, how can our campus locations do that? And then also around performance. So basically holding everybody to account in terms of the data that sits underneath all of that. So I've got a data team that manage occupancy, cost management, etc., and all of those bits, and a PMO team to deliver projects, but in a consistent manner globally. So that's something, if you imagine what we've been doing, it's been a bit clunky. We've delivered amazing projects, but we've been using different teams to do that. So if you imagine like the governance, the structure of that changes with every project, or even from a design perspective, we would start from scratch with a design intake when actually we could be starting at a benchmark of, this is what our standard floor plates look like, and this is what we need your input into. And
now we can tailor that for the location, but as a starting point, we're here.
Yeah. So idea being 80% global standards and approach, and 20% so that we really get that, you walk into Sydney office as an example, or Sydney campus, and you go, I'm in Australia. This has a totally different vibe to, London, but I know that I still know
that you're in a WPP
exactly.
office.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Interesting. So in terms of then if we say sort of within the next 5 years, kind of what's important to you, both personally and from a business perspective, what are you focused on? What are you hoping to achieve?
Yeah.
What's getting you out of bed, and pumping you up in the morning?
Do you know what my number one, and actually this is something that's been consistent throughout my whole career, my number one thing is that I want our campus locations from a WPP standpoint to help people perform their best. And that's as simple as that. So it needs to be a place that you want to go to, that you're not forced to go to, that is going to actually help you deliver amazing, incredible work. So to do that, we need some consistent, I'm calling them like world-class fundamentals, but we need some absolute incredible foundations to build that. And we need to have the space to listen to the end user. So that's, employees, visitors, contractors, everybody that walks through our doors, for them to leave that place and go, do you know what? They actually really care. I think that's at the heart of everything that I'm trying to do. And it's going to take us, it's a long road that we're going to have to go on. So it's maintaining that energy and realizing it's a marathon, not a sprint. But I know that we'll get there, and I think we've got so many different people within our organization, and we need to deliver an experience which resonates, so that if you've emigrated from India and now you're working in London, how do you feel a bit of India in London, in the sense of like how do you connect to a group or a community within that building, and how do we make sure we celebrate all of those amazing moments that all of our people are going through right now? We've got a bit of work to do on that, I think.
So it's kind of a people aspect as well as kind of like I was looking at something the other day, kind of employee experience platforms where teams can log in and they kind of and talk, share, build that online culture. So if you're in different countries, you can still mix with colleagues in an online environment almost.
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that I always say to people when I talk really about real estate and workplace services anyway, is I'm not a traditional real estate person, in the sense of, sometimes there's comments that are made that make me feel a bit ick in the industry, if I'm honest, when people talk about sweating the asset and return on investment and all of this stuff. It's like, at the heart of it, we're a business enabler, and that's what we have to remember. So we have to be cost conscious when we're looking at locations. We need to pick the right locations to support, the workforce strategy and everything that comes with it. But actually, if we remain in a silo, we're never going to make a difference. So part of my role is to connect the dots with all the different agencies and the main people at the various agencies to make sure we're delivering what they need, but also, liaising with HR around what is their talent proposition. What do they care about? What are people, if people are turning down a job at WPP, why is it? If it's related to a campus, then we need to know about it, because we are the people who can do something about that. So I think making sure that your connections within an organization are outside of your own function is super helpful. That is, stepping out of running my own business to go back into corporate. Again, that's a huge piece of advice I'd give to people. Get out of your function and look at what everybody else is doing, and see if there's synergies or ways that you can support each other as well with those projects. Because 9 times out of 10, our goal might be over here to do this, someone else's goal is to do something else, but actually the same solution will solve for both of those things. So yeah. And then personally, from my side, I just want to grow the people around me as well, in terms of, I've got a new team now, obviously, that are at WPP, and I want to unlock their potential and just see them totally fly, because I feel like I've got amazing people that are going to be joining the team, and some already in the team that are running at maybe 20% of what they could be doing. And I feel like over the next year, I'm going to be in a position where I'll look back and go to these particular individuals, like, do you remember when you used to say, like, I can't do that? Or, you know what I mean? And look at you now. Like, that's what I can envisage in the future, that I'll look around and potentially I'll have already done myself out of a job, because there'll be someone there that can pick up the mantle from me, basically. So yeah.
I think that says a lot, because I think I said business goals and then personal, and actually your personal goals are still to help people within your business environment succeed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that is it. That's cut you in half, and that's what you think and what you believe.
Yeah. They say, don't they? Like, do you like to receive gifts, or do you like to give gifts? And I get more joy out of giving.
100%. And I also have a thing at Christmas time. The reason I like giving rather than receiving is I hate people watching for my reaction when I'm opening the gift.
It's pressure.
It's pressure. I've always been the way I would far rather buy than receive.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
I get more joy in that.
Yeah. And naturally, it's like one of those things where, again, I should actually give a shout out to Louis. So I'm really good friends with Louis. He's one of my change makers at Work Reconstructed as well. And he does this game changer index, by the way. So I don't know if you've ever heard of the game changer index, but basically it's like a Myers-Briggs type situation, but you answer questions and then you get a score related to all the different things that you're good at. And it was so funny because when he did it for me recently, it was like transformation was basically there, and coach. It was kind of like those are the main things that obviously set a fire in me around making something better than it was before, and then supporting other people in terms of growth. And it was really weird. It was like the job that I'm in now is basically like all of my skills, like the strategy, all of those things in one job. So it's quite mad. And the fact, again, I got a tap on the shoulder. I didn't apply for anything. I just got asked, will you do it? And I was like, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, go on then. Well, I'll have a look at that. Game Changer Index.
Yeah, have a little look. Yeah.
And is that something as part of Work Reconstructed, or it's a thing that already exists?
It's something that already exists. Yeah. Okay. So Louis I one of our change makers, but he does. I'll put him in touch with you. So I'm sure he'll like. Yeah, I think you'd really like it. But it's all around like the buckets of where you sit, and the idea being that he's going to help me with my team when they're all fully built out. That we're going to do that with. We're going to do that individually and then map it as one and see where all of our skills are so that we can amp up the skills that people are really good at. And then if there's someone in the team that doesn't like that one element, there might be someone else who can do that on their behalf so that we become like a really strong, cohesive unit, basically. And this is the stuff that like I get excited about. So you can imagine when I was running my own business by myself, I mean,
there's a huge part of you that you aren't able to do.
Yeah.
Because you need people to do it with.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to be part of your team. Look, I've really enjoyed today. We'll slowly bring it to a close as we're an hour and a quarter now. Really interesting. It's been an effortless podcast from my perspective. Just and people probably won't see how lit up you are when you're talking, because most of this will just go out as audio. But your cheeks must hurt from the amount of smiling that you've been doing, which is great. It's a privilege to talk to someone about what they do and see how passionately they do it. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that don't have that, and it's not luxury, but don't get that opportunity to be able to do that. So look, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you ever so much for coming on, Bex, and we'll definitely get you back. Give it 6 months, give it a year, and we'll see how your team are thriving. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and you're so easy to chat to as well, I've got to say.
Practice makes perfect. Thanks, Bex. Speak soon.
Thank you.
If you have an office project on the horizon and will be preparing a budget for board approval, head to my website, www.steveberridge.com, where I have a collection of resources to help you formulate a robust project budget and give your project the best chance of being a success. Thanks.